Okay, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Jenna Thackert,
And I'm Leonka Reina.
and today we're talking with Teresa Greco, and we are going to talk about happiness and channeling. And I feel like Teresa really, your main message is opening the door to the steps of happiness. And can we just start right there? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this work and where you started, and especially why your focus is on happiness? Can't
Thank
imagine.
you. Thank you so much. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
You said a
Okay.
little
You
bit
sound a
lower.
little low, but I can turn you
Okay.
up.
How about now?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So, how did I get all started with it? Is that what was that what your question?
Yes, let's start there.
Okay, so basically for me, it was the milestone of turning 40 that had me taking a step back and reevaluating my life. And that if I had arrived at half my life at that point, could I imagine living the same life for the next 40 years? Is this all there is to life where you get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, sleep, repeat? Am I happy living the life I'm living? And so, in the asking of particular questions, I realized that my life looked pretty perfect on the outside. I had achieved all the things that family, society, culture, and religion told me I needed to have a happy life. So, satisfying career as an educator, our own home, cars in the driveway, vacations a year, lots of beautiful material things. And so, if my life checked off all the boxes, how is it that I still felt unhappy and
Mhm.
That's
and
huge.
it was huge. And then in the realization of that and not wanting to talk to anybody about it. So this has become so much part of my message in that I now tell people not to suffer in silence because I did. And I did that for fear of loss of love, judgment, rejection. That if I were to say something to someone, they'd say, "But Teresa, your life is perfect. What do you have to complain about?" And so in not talking to anybody and only listening to the same like internal chatter in my head, it led me to the lowest point of my life where I believed my life didn't mean anything. And if I no longer existed, it would only really matter to my kids. But what that did was it spurred me on a path of healing and self-discovery that lasted over 5 years, that then had me understanding what true happiness really is. And it then became my mission to help the world become a happier place by sharing what true happiness really is, which I know all through my conversations with spirit. And so that healing process that now my business is called the Steps to Happiness is that I followed many different steps, many practices, methodologies, and philosophies that helped me to understand that. It led me to Reiki and becoming a Reiki master, and then through that, I was, I think I was already channeling, but not to the degree that I have been for several years now. Basically, again, the universe was like, I think you need to look into this. And then I was like, oh, okay, what is this? Because I'd never heard about it. And then I worked with a facilitator that helped me to get started. And then everything I know about happiness is through my conversations with spirit, where it was like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? I'm reading this and I heard about this. And is it this? Is it this? And then during COVID, when I had more time to have more conversations, understanding what true happiness really was, and then getting myself to a really great place, and then feeling like I couldn't keep this information only to myself. That I, as an educator by profession, I am a gifted teacher, and I know I've been teaching in other lifetimes as well. So it was like, well, maybe I could teach other people about what true happiness is and the ways that we can realign and reconnect with the truth of who we are, so that we can live our happiest lives. And then it translated into like, four different shows and best-selling co-authored books and international articles, and my PhD is also based on inner happiness as well. So it's like a whole new world opened up because of like the low point of my life, but it led me to do all the work that I'm doing today, which is pretty incredible.
It is pretty incredible. What I think what you're saying, I mean, a lot of people have this where you look like you've got the family, you've got the two kids, you've got the house, you're well taken care of, you've got the money, and yet there's still
Yeah.
something inside and internal that you don't feel fulfilled,
Mhm.
is
Oh, I
what
feel like a lot of women are
oh, I've
people.
had
Me
this.
too, 100% have had this. Like it was what brought me to this point today.
Hmm.
But lots of times people don't know why they're experiencing that and they don't feel comfortable having this conversation. So bless you.
Yeah,
A,
because they're like, no, everything is perfect for
yeah. Why
real.
should I feel? Oh, and then there was my thing was like I felt guilty for feeling
Hmm.
unhappy. It was like, Leonka, you have so much. Da, da,
Yeah.
da, da, da.
Like, be grateful
Yeah.
for
And I'm
it.
like, but
Yeah.
something is, I know something is integrally missing. And it was. And to tell you the truth, now I know that if I would have stayed where I was and did those things and stayed in the unhappiness instead of seeking it out, I would have made myself sick. And so we also see disease, dis-ease show up in that realm too, if we keep ignoring ourselves.
So
Um, so bless you again for having this conversation.
thank you. Yeah, this because it's a unique one for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, where do we start? If say that we were the exact person that you're talking to, that we look successful, we've got the family, we're even in our head concluding that we are a success, and yet we have this internal lack of
Mhm.
eh,
Fulfillment,
Mhm.
fulfillment for life.
for lack of
Yeah.
a better
We
word.
don't love our
And,
life. Yeah.
and I always felt like there was a void.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and it didn't matter how much more education I got, how much more I tried to serve people. My entire life has always been about how may I serve, how may I serve, and that, all the education was in order for me to have more to share with others, and that it didn't matter how much more I bought, how much more I achieved, where I went, or what I did. I always felt like there was something missing. And I realize now that that something missing was my true and authentic self, that I technically lost myself in the living of my life. And I'll
Mm,
get like that coffee that I had with a friend of mine where I audibly said that, where I said,
mm.
lost myself in the living of my life.
Wow, that's a big
And that
statement.
It's
and that
huge.
I didn't know who I was. And it's like, because my roles and responsibilities and identity was all caught up in my what I now call my outer being, who I was showing up on the outside wearing all masks. It was like, who does Teresa need to be at work? Here's the mask. Who does Teresa need to be with her in-laws? Who does Teresa need to be at home with her parents, with her friends? It was me playing a part, trying to earn the love and affection and reverence and status and respect from all these outside people, wanting them to like, love, and accept me, and living up to all their external expectations, not realizing that I wasn't respecting, honoring, or loving myself at all in that process. Um, and so all of that had accumulated and led to, again, me at the lowest point. I now know that that something missing could never be filled by all the things that we attribute to the misconceptions of where happiness is found. So we believe that it's found in our possessions, positions, titles, degrees, relationships, experiences, and appearance. And these are all proven by science.
Wow.
And we say things like, I won't be happy until I go on that vacation. I won't be happy until I find that perfect person. I won't be happy until I buy that sports car or earn that promotion at work or pay off my mortgage or lose those 10 pounds. That happiness is always found somewhere else,
Hmm.
and we just need to find, buy, earn, or achieve it. But we realize that we accumulate these things and we might be happy for like, 3 days to a week, and then we go back to feeling the way that we were. And this is because we don't understand what true happiness really is. And that's why I had been led astray by those misconceptions, as many of us are. And as I share my message with younger and younger individuals, especially that demographic of 15 to 24, who we know is actually the hardest hit demographic of mental illness right now, is because they're lost in that. They believe that their happiness is going to be found somewhere in the future when they graduate and they like get
Mm.
a job and then they get married, and they're actually at the beginning point of the accumulation of all these things that we think make us successful, not recognizing that you could very well arrive there and still feel unhappy, unfulfilled, that
Hmm.
there's something
Would you
missing.
would you say a lot of that is judgment of others? They're trying to get the clothes for approval of others, or trying to get the hair and the makeup for approval for others. Or do you actually, is that really what this is all rooted in? Is we're trying to live our lives for the rest of the world and not for ourselves?
Because there's so much marketing and consumerism around.
Mm.
We're
Mhm.
also taught very young to look externally for everything that we
Yes,
need,
that's
Yeah.
it.
for
Yes.
Mhm.
that guidance, for that love, that I had been looking for love outside myself my entire life and everyone around me, and then disappointed that people didn't love me the way that I wanted to, not knowing that I was love already,
Ah.
not knowing that I needed to love myself. But I didn't know anything about this until I tapped into it. So until I learned about my spiritual self, I didn't know anything about all of this like self-love and this inner love and the inner happiness. I didn't know anything about it because I was also living outward focused, how we're taught as kids to ask everybody around us, religious leaders, educators, parents, people that we trust, what should I do? What do you think? What do you think? Not knowing that everything that we actually are searching for outside of ourselves already always exists within us. And that guidance that I was looking for exists inside of myself. But I was brought up Catholic, right? Religious, my belief in God my entire life, but my religion led me astray, telling me that God was at church and that if I didn't get to church, it wasn't the same. Jesus was at church. And I said, as a little girl talking to my priest, if I can't go to church that day because my parents don't want to go, what do I do? Well, I go, can I pray at home? Well, it's not the same because they're at church and you need to try to get yourself.
No.
And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
that
Wow.
even that aspect was kept outside of myself in some like
Oh, I'm
identity
sorry.
out here
Hmm.
that you need to prove yourself to, not knowing that it's all inside of you and that you're connected to all of that, that you are a piece of that ocean, that you can never be disconnected from the love, peace, and happiness, but from like all that is.
Yes. And science is really showing
Awesome.
that too. I
Mhm.
know that you're really based in science
Mhm.
and a lot of stuff you do is in this in the studies. And it's so fascinating how, we've gotten all this information from the, ancient writings or whatnot, right? But still it's it, it was something that's still kind of runs amiss to us. And so it's now the science is being able to prove all of these different things that we already kind of maybe innately knew, or that maybe religion had steered us away from. But it's a beautiful thing to now see that, that we are all interconnected, and even the trees, right? There's this big
Yeah.
trend that's running on social media that's like, having the trees talk to us, and we interact with them. But and I bring this up to be timely and to be kind of fun and bring it in. But the truth is that there are so many ways that we've forgotten ourselves. What
Mhm.
are some of the ways that we can remember ourselves and find this? So here I am, I hear my other self going, the little devil's advocate going, Teresa, that sounds all great about finding
Mhm.
it in myself. I've heard this a million times, but how do I reach that? How do I reach her? How do I reach
Yeah.
me?
And
Mhm.
how do you use Reiki and channeling to help people do that?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Let's dive in.
Mhm. Well, first, it's important for us to understand what true happiness is,
Okay.
Mhm.
and which is that it is an innate part of our spiritual self. So that infinite eternal part of us is innately and infinitely potential, all of that, happy,
Yes.
at peace, and loving. And that it is happiness is really it's a part of love in the sense that love is the foundation, that there is only love and we are only love. And that if you thought of love like a prism and you shined a light through it, it would create this beautiful rainbow of color. All the rainbow of color, all the good feeling emotions we feel because of love. So we always have to go back to the foundation of love. Even when I'm not happy, it's because somehow I'm probably like not loving myself or not loving the situation or not loving others or not loving what I'm doing. It's always somehow tied to the love, but all the good feelings are all facets of love. And so happiness is one of those things, peace is one of those things, all the good feeling emotions we feel. So that part of us is always there. It's our mental, emotional, and physical self that are disconnected or misaligned from the happiness that we are. That happiness is like, it's like our arm, it's a part of who we are. But
Oh,
if we
I like
don't
it.
feel happy, it's
Hmm.
because our mental, emotional, or physical self is, as I said, disconnected or misaligned. So if I'm not feeling happy, now I know that there's a part of me that's always happy. And if I don't feel happy today, I think about, well, what part of me is misaligned? Is it my physical self because I have aches and pains or a headache? Is it my mental self that I'm not thinking about this situation in the right way and therefore it's making me feel, any other negative emotion as a result of that? Or
Mhm.
emotionally, I'm also listening to the communication of all aspects of myself and saying, emotionally, why don't I feel happy? Well, it's oftentimes our mental self that is perpetuating some kind of thoughts about something that then elicits that emotional response. And so I then take the steps to realign myself with the truth of that which I am. And so that was leading into your question is like, what are those things? So those things is what I like to talk about as our happiness toolkit. And our happiness toolkit consists of those things that help us to realign with the happiness that we are. Happiness is like the electricity that's flowing through all the walls, but you only tap into the electricity when you plug into it. Then that electricity flows through that device or whatever that's plugged in. It's exactly how it is for us. And those things in our happiness toolkit either help to remove the blocks that are preventing us
Okay.
from being happy, because happiness is also like the sun. The sun is always there, even though sometimes the clouds move in front, or sometimes we're angled away from the sun and we have nighttime, but it doesn't matter. The sun is always there, and that is our happiness. And so we need to know either in our toolkit how to remove the clouds that are preventing us from feeling happy, as well as making time to connect to the happiness that is always flowing through us. And so that's where those things come into the kit. Now, it's important before I share some of those things that, are in my kit, because what's in my kit is different than what's in your kit. And so a lot of the tools that I have in my kit are tools that I've utilized myself over the course of like my healing and all the different training that I've undergone too. And that these tools are not things that are taught in school. They're also not taught by us socially. People don't talk about what are these tools that we need to realign ourselves with the happiness that we are. And then some of those things are like the activities that we find happiness in, right? Where, it could be drawing or cooking or reading or dancing or listening to music, creating music, listening to podcasts, being out in nature, playing with our kids, our pets, an infinite amount of things that help us to connect. Now, it's important. This is another key part of their message is that during COVID, I asked them, I said, how do you expect me to be happy when I can't do all the things that I like to do, such as traveling and having a drink on an outside patio with my friends and
Uh,
shopping and going to
yes.
malls, all the things? How do you expect me to be happy? And then Spirit said to me, all of those things this is very key, all of those things that we attribute our happiness to. So when people say, oh, I'm happy when I go to concerts and when I go to restaurants and I travel, or all the things that make them happy, those things are only ever a vehicle that helps them to connect to the happiness that we are innately. So those things is this.
Okay.
So if it's yoga, you're taking yoga to plug into the happiness that exists inside of you and is flowing freely in abundance. You're walking out in nature. You've taken time to plug in to the happiness that's always flowing. When we know that there's a part of us that is always happy and happy in abundance, all it means that we need to know how to plug into that happiness because it is always there. And that is like a key part of my message, but it's like the missing key to our happiness because we think that happiness is found outside in all of these things that we try to acquire. Now recognizing that there's a part of us that is happy always. And so when I'm not happy, I think, okay, what's misaligning me and what
Yeah.
tools I need to utilize in my toolkit so that I can get myself back to the place of happiness because it exists inside of all of us. It is us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually more unconditional love than we can even really truly know from my understanding.
Because it's so big, right? It's
Yeah.
so big. And I think like our understanding of love is kind of what we learn that it is, right? Like just
Mhm.
through our human interactions from like very young children, that we have, a love for our parents and a love for our friends and a love, but it's not unconditional love.
Right. Not a,
And
not even close.
and
Yeah.
I think the closest, I mean, I'm trying to get myself to unconditionally love myself to that point.
Right.
Mhm.
There's so much like programming and conditioning
Yeah.
that it makes it challenging that I'm trying to rewrite and reprogram to try to love myself in that way. And I've made huge progress. So I mean, I'm proud to say that, but I would say I am actively trying to love my children unconditionally. And I believe that our creator, the divine source, what God, whatever you want to call it, loves us in exactly that same way, love
Sure.
unconditionally. And I think us loving our children, I mean, I think our spouses and our partners and stuff, it's again, there's like some challenges around that, right? But I think the closest that we could maybe feel unconditional would be like from a parent to a child, that
Mhm.
even though they make mistakes and they do things you don't like or whatever, they still come home. Like the story in the Bible of the prodigal son. I love that story of how, one of the sons goes off and squanders all the money and lives the big life and says, well, I need to come home. And then the one son that stood by his father, his whole life was like, oh no, he did this and that, he should never. And the father says, oh, takes you in with,
Yeah.
loving arms, throws a big party to celebrate that you've
Yeah.
come. And that is like, I think, the example of that unconditional love that our Creator has for us, that we need to try to, as much as we can, live, as that and in the example of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like it's really almost this you want to be guided. Okay, just ask, ask for the guidance, ask for the awareness, take the step forward, and to never get into, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I suck, whatever the ticker on your brain says. It's like the moments when I'm just the energy and I've gone away from like, well, I have to do it this way, I have to do it that way, and my control freak just takes the side seat. Those are the moments when I am alive and free and truly happy as you say it. I love how you say it. Well, let's talk about some of the modalities that you use to kind of unlock that kind of stickiness within people.
And Teresa, don't hesitate to.
Like this is a
This is a very advanced group,
right.
right? So she likes to call our peeps the Navy SEALs of consciousness, even though we don't. We may not know the answers, but our group here is always willing to just be available for and just have an open mind for. So let us know some of some of the ins and outs of like even the channeling that came aboard and what that might even have sounded like or sound like if you want to share that with us with today.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you saying that. But with the same token, the practices are actually very simple.
I
Yes,
know,
I
I
know.
know.
It's
Yes.
we always, I think that even in the spiritual community, people tend to make it more complicated than it actually is to say, well, and it's because again, there's all this consumerism and marketing around, well, you want to get to the upper levels. And it's like, which never resonated with me because do you know we are that? I am that
Already, yes.
now,
Yeah.
always, in any minute. And it's these misconceptions again that it's like, well, we have to do this, that people sell a 9-step program and that you have to go through these 9 steps if you're going to get to like to enlightenment or whatever it is that there's, and it's like even that I'm like, even just saying it, I'm like like
Ew,
our
yeah.
emotional self is always guiding us, right?
Exactly.
Out is
Yes.
that compass that tells me what she's selling there. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. And this idea that we're blocked, we're
I
blocked, we're disconnected, and unless you do this clearing, and unless you do this opening, and unless you do it in a particular way, in the again in this order, and with these like stuff around you, with the candles and the beads, and
We're
it's like.
actually the opposite of that already.
yeah.
But
And
this is what they sell, right? They
I don't
sell
want this.
all of
I don't
this.
want people to take to walk away and to feel like, okay, they can't buy something and feel like
No,
that they're going to
no.
get some healing and love. So I feel like it's definitely. So I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea from the statement. But I also believe that when your spidey senses were coming up and saying, no, that there are things that are for everybody and everyone receives differently. So by all means, if you feel like that's, going to open you up and have some different revelation, it may be because it's just landing for that person. Or for you, you just knew that's not how it wasn't true for you, right? So everybody has
That's
their
all I'm
different ways
speaking
of,
from. It's like
yeah, exactly.
someone
Exactly. And we
might
just have
step
to,
to say, I lost myself in even all of that because there are
Mhm.
belief systems out there that say you need
Okay.
all of these things in order for you to connect to your truth.
Yes.
absolutely. And I'm so
And
glad that you got to that because that is the thing that we're always trying to. It's like you are your own best guru. You are your guiding light. And this is the reason why we have a diverse amounts of different speakers and perspectives and ideas here, is because we all are different facets of this beautiful experience.
and
Mhm.
what's
Yeah.
going to work? And that's why when I said about your happiness toolkit is that what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you, right? But
Yes.
always tuning into that, your emotional self that's guiding you, whether it's telling you it's right or wrong for you.
There
Absolutely.
you go.
That, what's working for someone else may not, right? And that's why we have many practitioners on
That's
this call,
right.
because we're all needed and we all need to be doing the work. And what resonates with one person may not resonate with someone else. And that's all fine. But that was all to say that it's actually very simple in that when you understand that that's who you are innately, why are we making it more complicated by believing that there's all of these, and I do think technically there are like different levels, but the levels are actually like layers that we peel off, and it's like layers of programming and past trauma and limiting beliefs and the things that are sabotaging us. Is like we take all of those things off to be able to really see who we really are, which
Mhm.
is what we're talking about today, right? So how do we connect to that part? How do we listen to that truth? and
Hmm.
Yes.
and I think that it is through very simple practices like being out in nature and just being, which means,
Yes.
trying to get to a point that you don't you're in a state of appreciation for what you're observing. And I'm just looking out because I have a very beautiful backyard that um was fulfilling me during COVID, which I didn't understand because it's fenced and it's got some like, grass and greenery. But I was like, but here I am not being able to go and visit the world and explore other places and then finding all this tranquility and peace in my simple backyard, or all this tranquility walking around my neighborhood that I've always walked in, but being mindful while doing it and being really, really present. And oftentimes our mental self wants to pull us away from that present moment, but happiness is found in the now. that oftentimes we're thinking about the past or thinking about the future with all the things that we have to do. And some points during the day are going to be more challenging than others. I find for me, when I try to connect in the morning, it can be a bit hard because my mind starts to say, well, Teresa, you've got this to do today, and then you've got 10 o'clock, you've got that, and then that. So at the end of the day, when now I'm starting to shut down, is when I feel like I can now make some time to like review what went really well in my life. Um, I think for me to quickly get into that place, it's through breath. Closing my eyes so I can, instead of being focused on the outer world, is just to remove some of that stimulation so that I can just focus inward and then just breathing and think and becoming here, like conscious of the present moment and how I'm feeling in that present moment, just stilling the world enough so that I can just tune in. And if I'm still having a hard time while doing that, I might think of those that I love and why I'm so grateful for those that I have in my life that I really love, and this really ties into Joe Dispenza's work around like all of his meditations are all about tuning inward through gratitude and appreciation, so we can have that heart mind coherence that, and it doesn't take long. It's like 1 minute. And but the
Mhm.
more that we practice, it's really about the practice, and that it's like a channel that as we practice gets like larger, larger, and larger, so that that connection happens easily and all the time. Like it for me, it's gotten to the point that it's all the time. I actually don't need a practice to be connected. Like Bianca was saying, it's like we're always hearing it. It's I'm realizing that I actually don't even need to go through a bit of like using a practice in order for me to hear it, that I can actually always hear it always. And
Mhm.
now tuning into the presence of that I didn't know it was, I think I didn't even know it was always there,
Yep. You
and
just
thinking,
think,
well, it's synchronicities, it's
Mhm.
coincidence, it's luck, but it was actually them speaking to me, which is also, when I say them, I call them my divine crew, and my
Yeah,
divine crew is made up of my guides and angels and ancestors and all the invisible entities that are all helping me, plus my higher self that knows too what I'm supposed to be doing and how I need to be guided,
that's right.
and it's speaking to me throughout the day, say, open it, open this and do that and push on that. And I'm like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. And it's like signs and symbols get shown to you
yep,
like all the
all day.
time when we just listen to that intuition, that small voice that we just try to like maybe ignore, or we don't practice listening to it enough. So it's very quiet, but the
Yeah.
more time we practice every single day, practicing, that voice does get louder.
And I
Well,
would even venture to say is you can even ask it. So don't, for everyone for listening, don't feel like it's just her on her own that has this divine group, right? We all do. We all are so blessed to have this little support group, and we can ask our support group for divine guidance and a clear connection. So basically, if I always tell my guides, I'm like, hey, y'all know that sometimes I miss my, sometimes I might miss my like signs. Can you please clear, concise communication that I can understand today? And I will get those clear, concise communications, and you will start to learn what those look like and how one wants to be able to
Mhm.
communicate, which is right now writing on the chat saying one of my recent poems is titled My Inner Voice.
Yeah.
You'll start to, and you might get it messages through various different ways, whether that's a song, whether that's through symbols, whether that's through birds or whatever it is, but you start to peek up and you're like, oh, that's really in my awareness. And
Yeah.
those are what I call, those very, very prominent places.
What are
Mm.
your advice if somebody's like, I'm not connected, I
Yeah.
can't talk to my intuition? How do you get them connected? What do-
I always say that meditation, I feel like, is that gateway practice
Mhm.
that helps you to know about your spiritual self. That I didn't know. I was taught how to pray which is to like
Yeah.
speak
Yeah.
the word and ask for the things. And that when I, started my happiness journey over 10 years ago and I had all those questions about my life, was that I said, I only God's going to be able to answer this. So I went to a medium and I said, I need to hear from God. And that was it, that why I had a stack of books on my nightstand of people that were hearing from God, seeing from God. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I've been praying to you, believing in you my whole life. Why can't I hear from you?
Hmm.
I
Oh,
went
it's so vulnerable. I love it.
Yeah.
and I went to her and I said, I need to hear. And because that guidance was only going to come from within me. Well, at that point from God, but not knowing it was from within me. And she said, Spirit is telling me that you need to meditate. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And now I'm so glad, right? Over 10 years later, it's such a buzzword and everybody says they do it. I'm happy for that. But it wasn't like that when I started, that my family thought it was part of a cult. And it was so
Yeah.
super weird and woo-woo, and I couldn't talk about it with anybody. But that moment so basically what happened, I called a meditation center that happened to ironically be directly across the street from my Catholic church. And I seen that little sign and I'm like, what are they doing there? And so I called them up and I said, listen, Spirit's telling me I need to meditate. I don't know what that is. And they said, well, we have a meditation circle and if you come, we can help you to get started. And so and I always explain that moment of connection was like that moment that, we heard described as like the angels that are like
Yes, yes,
literally like that, like
yes.
this. And I was
And for
like,
those who are on the audio, she was like doing that, oh, like that kind of thing.
yeah, like insane. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh my God, that there was like this entire world inside of me that I didn't know about. But that world that opened up was all love. It was like
Mhm.
all this love. And I was like, oh my God. And I had been searching for love outside myself, not knowing it was inside of me this entire time. And that I didn't have to look a certain way, do anything specific, that they just loving me unconditionally, exactly as I was, with all my issues and
yeah,
faults, problems and whatever, just all this love. And then it was like, and then that guidance started to come through where it was like, then it was like, oh, and then I could see entities. And so when I connect with spirit, I can see, so they will send like through visuals, but also through talking. Um, and so it's just been like a progression of that, like over the years, and just like honing that. But I really believe that meditation is that gateway practice. Like, when we say about plugging in, it's like, you're not doing this like this roundabout trying to find it. It's like, zzz,
Yeah. No,
it's there,
absolutely.
it's there, like fast, it's quick, it's like
Yeah.
it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've done some Joe Dispenza work intensely, and that was my number one thing. That was like, oh, and then I was like, angel number, angel number, angel number, and it was just like, all right, I'm aligned, I get it, and now let's create and let's grow, and the focus became more on creation rather than figuring things out or what are we gonna do, and
Yeah.
but I really feel like I'd done some work and some education before, but I really felt like when I was like, I'm actually going to try this. Like that
yeah.
Yeah.
was
Like
that
really
was
give
my part.
yourself.
Yeah.
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 And
Like
that
I'm really
makes
going to do it right. And I'm going to sit up and I'm going to breathe the way he says and the whole thing. And,
yeah.
so I didn't, I'd be like, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep.
But even if you do, it's okay.
No, and then you wake up just like having these beautiful fluttery angels like flowing in your heart.
Yes, yes, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I think too, it's always important. I feel like important to share that experience is different for everybody too, right? That
Hmm.
when you delve more into like, the different communities and individuals that, that do this work, and that what I'm learning is about how everyone's journey is different, and that what each of us are being shown is for our own personal growth and evolution. That
Hmm.
has found me is different than what's going to find you, and who is going to
Mhm.
assist you on that journey is going to be different. So it's very important that we don't compare our experience with anybody else's experience to
Yeah,
say, well, I'm not doing it right, and oh, and I don't have all the gadgets or the tools, or is that how it's going to find you, how your inner being is talking to you, and the signs and symbols that are going to find you is different for everybody, right? Whether it's like
absolutely.
numbers or
100%.
colors or symbols, or how it speaks to you. Like when we think about all the different clairs that are out there, right?
Mm.
That a friend of mine is a sommelier. And so
Mm.
she has a very like distinct sense of smell. And
I
she's
bet.
and she will say, which she didn't know till I told her about it, that she said that she'll find herself in an Uber or a taxi, and then all of a sudden there's like an aroma of a cologne.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
she
then,
didn't know she had that. Oh, gotcha.
Oh,
yeah, and she
wow.
didn't know. Or there are times when she's not with her children, that she'll get like a whiff of like in them what they smell like.
No.
It's because you're being surrounded by like your invisible, support
Yes.
system, and that's their way of saying hello to you. Whereas I have
Uh-huh.
sinus issues my entire life, and I say that I smell at 50%. Like they are not speaking to me through
Yeah.
my sense of smell.
I hope
Oh,
because I've had sinus issues my whole life and I do have an acute sense like this smell. I do smell my guides. Like they'll come in and I'm like, "Whoa, there is roses," or "Oh, there is this." So and
Mhm.
it's kind of like some of it's a mind thing too. Like I can experience it. It's so weird. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I've always been a sinus girl too.
But it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
your physical smell, even though you're physically
Uh-huh.
smelling it.
Yes.
It
It's
doesn't
just
actually go up that way.
sometimes, yeah, it's just
Yeah, it's
the
from.
knowing of the smell. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
it engulf, and I'm like, you don't smell that?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like, Courtney, do y'all not hear that?
yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah. And
So
asking, oh, sorry. And just to say, and
Yeah.
to ask for that too, like when
yes,
I've worked with some of my clients that are trying to figure out like how their support system communicates with them, is just like
uh-huh,
to tune into like any sensations on the body and where that might be, whether it be like, on the back of your neck or your head, or like, shivers down your body, or what that is, and to ask, right? To say, make yourself like known to me. And then those are like those moments where, whether you're like getting a vision or whether you hear a word or whatever that is. So it's like making time for that, and then asking for that communication in that moment, and just to tune in to see if you feel anything, in any of those like sensory ways, or even, through your sixth sense, which would, you know,
Yeah.
be a different one too.
Well, we've talked a little bit about happiness and the steps, and we know that identifying at first mental, physical, emotional is really some of the key points that we look at. And then we talked a little bit about, growing your intuitive awareness around this. What are some of those other simple steps that you take people through to really help them awaken up that inner spark inside?
or would it be easier for us to take a couple
Callers.
colors and you can kind of work with them?
Sure, we can, yeah, they can, that's fun. I would love for them to
Yeah,
call.
I think we just because of purposes of time, why don't you go ahead and everyone, you can raise your hand. I'd volunteer if you don't, because I see you on the chat, and please raise your hand and experience what we've got for today from Teresa.
Right. And we had a question on the chat that just popped in that said, can you adjust your level of happiness? Can you be a 5% happier than you are right now? And
Well,
that's from Jay. And he's also
He's
raised
also,
his
let's just
hand.
go ahead and just unmute him.
so I Happiness is also, this is likening to another analogy that I use of happiness on the scale. So if your happiness was here, and all of the burdens that you carry on this side, all this, the past trauma, the regrets, the mistakes, the stuff that, like those clouds that are weighing us down, and those, can be many, whatever those things are. And that it is always the amount of happiness you have is always in relation to the amount of weight that you're carrying on the other side of the scale.
Mm,
So this is why
interesting.
doing the work is so important. That when I get triggered by something that I'm supposed to look at and work through and let go and heal and forgive and do the work, that then that little baggage comes off and my happiness goes up. And that
Mhm.
all the work that I'm doing by looking at all of those clouds, let's say, or the burdens that's on this side, and I continue to deal with them and
Cool.
look at them, my happiness quotient goes up. So when I ask
Cool.
people, are you happy? They're like, yeah, I'm happy. But you're only really as happy as the amount of stuff that you have on the other side that you need to offload. And that's why doing this work for me is like because it's layers, as I was saying, that
Yeah.
have to get peeled off, and that the happiness continues to go up, which is why I'm actually like, how happy, how freaking happy can I be in this
Right.
lifetime?
And
That's
technically, a lot of those offloading things are points of view that you have
Uh-huh.
about yourself.
It simply could be a
You know, that you
choice.
created yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
let's
let's
just,
talk with Jay
yeah.
and let's kind of expand this just a little more. Okay, Jay, you're up. And
Hello.
hello.
Um, I was in a family of narcissists, and I really didn't have a voice, um, no matter what it is. So, as a way of adapting to it, not by really, I'm saying not by really conscious choice, but it's like that was like the only option it seemed that was left to me was to become like a martyr. So, martyrdom and resentment, a lifetime of resentments. I didn't have any tools to deal with that. So I've carried that resentment, and I'm sure that if I just dropped that resentment and anger and frustration, that I would be much, much happier. And there is that balance of where I would kind of like to resolve the issue and to deal with it, to know how to live my life in a better, happier way.
Mhm.
Am I
Thank you
making
so
any sense?
Thank you so much for that because that's the truth that we don't know what the tools are, that we go through life very reactionary and we don't know how to work through a situation to bring us back to the place of peace because we are innately love, peace, and happiness at our core. And so, there are various practices that help us to feel at peace, but we need to know what are those tools that can help us to get there. And for example, I offer tools as part of like, my coaching programs. One of my programs is called the Steps to Happiness. It's a 6-week program that I adopted actually from a counselor in the US. And why I love it is that these 6 tools, so there's a tool delivered every single week, all the tenets of the tool. So it's psychoeducational, which means that I give you the tool, I give you all of the ways that you could apply that tool to a particular situation to help you to work through it to get you back to a place of peace. And so it's called mental freedom. And what those tools in essence get you to do is to like look at the situation through a new lens. And it says, how can I look at this from a different perspective and from the perspective of all of the tenets of that? And the program has been shown because it was used as part of like the research process from people all over the world that were working with people that were in jail, so in incarceration, in addiction centers, in private practice, in universities, PTSD, the military, like really the full gamut. And these 6 tools have been shown to be like all encompassing. There hasn't been a single situation that it hasn't been able to bring somebody like, where they're having those aha moments by being able to process. What I love about that program also is that you technically don't even have to talk to me about your skeletons, which is, part of my story, which I didn't feel comfortable talking to people about the skeletons that were in my closet, and the tools that I did allowed me to process a lot of those things in silence by myself. Like my family doesn't even know about all the years of healing that I did. That was a lot of crying, a lot of tools too that I did. And so, that's just to say that that's an example of like a program that has tools. And, I'm sure that there are other great people out there that offer some as well. But like I said, this one has been shown to be effective in all situations. So I have confidence that it would be able to help you.
So what you have in your package helps with PTSD then?
Yeah, yeah, it's been shown to help with PTSD because some of the practitioners worked with people in the military that had PTSD.
Go ahead, Emily.
Um,
Okay. Well, so
about
let go.
how long is that process of healing, or do you feel results somewhat right away?
So the program is 6 weeks. So every single week you're given a different tool. So then it would be a matter of you, once you have that tool, being able to utilize it in all the like to process and work through all of the different things that you have to apply it to. So that that's kind of on you based on like how much time you dedicate to working on the things, on removing those clouds.
So these are MP3s or something that you have, or
We
clouds?
can
Um,
go ahead and bring up the package in just a
What a
minute.
great segue. Yeah.
I guess I kind of curious, you know, what, when you said you could put on different glasses for a perspective change, can you give some examples of that, for Jay to kind of contribute to, just to kind of start his engine going, and then we'll bring up the package and go through it if that's okay.
Yeah, I don't think actually that it's in the like the package of like offerings that I've given because we've
Okay.
done more of a channeling, and the channeling is helpful because it helps us to understand why we go through things from a soul perspective and not from a human one. That when we go through crap in our life, which was like, the different things that I needed, it was like, why me? Why did I have to go through that? Why
Mhm.
me? And it
Yeah.
was like then my inner being revealed to me that I was going through all of those things and various things. I think the resentment I had towards my religion. Why me? Why did I have to get kept away from my spiritual self until I was 40? Why? And so it was like that it was able to reveal to me that, I on a soul level, we choose. We
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
choose to go through these experiences, and that those individuals closest to us are designed to help us to go through those shitty experiences so that we can then come to a place of learning, growing, and expanding from that. So
Yeah.
understanding that we're not like victims to these situations, but actually how we be able to move past to become victors because of the roles that these people play in, like, let's say, in the
Hmm.
play of our life, that they actually facilitate. So, like, issues I've had with my husband, that technically, I'm like, he's such a jerk for doing that. But what he actually did was he forced me to get to the lowest point of my life where I was like, I'm not having this anymore. And it forced me to have to rise up and become
Mhm.
more for myself. But I would never have had the opportunity to become more for myself if he didn't push me and get to the point that I
Yes.
took it for so long. I took
Yeah.
it. Then I
Yep.
was like, F that, I'm done.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And that in me rising, it then
Yes.
caused him to have to make changes in his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we both leveled up in that process.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so this is so it's always on a soul level, though on a cognitive level, the crap that we go through doesn't make sense. But on a soul level, which is totally different because everything is neutral, it's actually not good or bad.
That's
They're
right.
just all experiences. But those things help us to ultimately learn, grow, and expand. And that is what, the very last week of that program that I'm talking about is called Finding the Glow. And the glow is about number one, finding the gifts. If
Mhm.
you see any gifts in the situation,
Yeah.
the L for the lessons that were learned because of that situation. The O were from the opportunities that came
Mhm.
about because of that situation. And lastly, the wisdom that was gained. And sometimes when stuff is really horrific and really bad, it can be hard to try to find those, but they are always there. One or a combination of, like to say that the lowest point of my life has done all of those for
Yeah,
me, that the opportunities, the life that I'm living, the mission that I
right.
have, and all the things that have come because of that lowest point would never, like I feel like I'm living someone else's life now, like the person who
Wow.
I kind of
I
have
get you
those
on that.
moments too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get
I'm
you on
like,
that.
I don't know
Yes.
who this is now. I'm like, this is a Teresa I didn't even know about. But it was like always, it was always me. It was always in me. But I'm
Yeah.
because of that, all of these things, it's helped me to discover more about who I really
I
am.
hope other
Mhm.
people can find that super inspiring, that you
Yeah.
can have a life that you're like, whose life am I living now? Like, I mean, if especially if you're feeling super stuck, right? If you're
Mhm.
feeling super like that things just aren't going your way or unfulfilled or whatnot, that you can turn around and there is a version that has these moments, because I know personally I have them. You're talking about it now, you know, and you're talking about utilizing your teachers to have gotten to this point, because I remember the same thing my husband, and it can come from a love, right? It can come from a place of love. It doesn't have to be like this fighting thing. It can be like, I leveled up in myself, so the way that my people respond to me have to change too,
Yeah.
and this can be a different, exciting, beautiful life that you're like, what? But it
Mhm.
comes from here, and it comes from connecting to source.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's bring up your package so we can talk about it. This sounds exciting.
And let me just say one other thing for Jay. I mean, I have to say the people that suffer the most are the people that are probably the most expanded
Yeah.
people in the world.
Yep.
It's almost like you've chosen to say, "Hey, I'm going to raise my hand, show me the ride of my life." And you don't realize when you're in heaven choosing it that it's actually going to be as miserable. But then you'll go back to heaven at the end and be like, oh my goodness, thank you. That was so fun. I got to overcome all these things. I got to get my glow on and I got to make magic
And I don't want
into the
anyone to
day.
get offended by that statement, because
Okay,
we're
you're
not
right.
trying to downplay by anything that
I
you're
know.
experiencing. Because I remember when I first heard that too, and I
Yeah.
was like, you got to be kidding me. But now I understand that I chose my parents, and I chose to also have very narcissistic parents. My mom was lots of people have heard this, but my dad was a drug dealer. My mom was a drug addict at the time. Now we have, my mother and I have a beautiful relationship. She's recovered. I have my own recovery. Like, it's amazing the life that can change. But yes, when I was young, I signed up for this life, and I remember now that I did. But it took a
Mm.
long time for me to be doing my own work to find that I had definitely chosen to be this little, guiding
Yeah.
light around a lot of negative.
Mhm.
So
So sorry if I
no, Jay, we love you.
if
Thank
I
you for being
triggered anybody else
so
though.
thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really is just meant to be messages of
And
inspiration
for your
for you.
future.
Yes.
Yeah.
For what can change today, right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
All right, Teresa, let's go through this. Are you there?
Yes. What would you
Okay.
like me to say?
Okay.
Just
I don't
tell us.
think, are you sharing?
I am sharing. Can you see the package? Your
Yes.
program. Okay,
Okay,
great.
so if you could go through this and tell us a little bit about what's in here, what they're going to receive if they decide to choose this today, and how
Sure,
much it
thank
costs. Yeah.
you. Thank you. So basically, what I decided because of your platform, I think what makes the more sense is to be able to like have Spirit share some insight as to what are some of the things that you might be feeling that, when we talked about that scale with, looking at the clouds that are blocking the sun or the weight that's on one side of that happiness scale is like, maybe getting some insight from spirit, from like your divine crew, your inner being, whoever it is that seems to come in that situation to give you some information from more of a soul perspective so that it can help you perhaps to like make some decisions around, getting clarity around certain maybe transitions that you have, or certain relationships in your life. And so I always think it's interesting. Every session is different based on what comes through, who comes through, who wants to come through, to be able, and they know even beyond like what we know in this time and space, because there is only really now, and they have kind of like insight that they can share. So basically what I decided to do was to offer the option to work with me with either like, a half session at 33 minutes, or a full session at an hour, to get some of that like coaching too. Like if anybody wants to look at it more kind of like, some counseling, some spiritual coaching, some messaging at the same time, they can go ahead and get and book some time with me.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. Again, when you're looking for links, you can usually find them by choosing hustle.com/their first name. Make sure that you spell Teresa's first name correctly in this case. It's not with an H, it's Teresa. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat, and it'll also be in the YouTube. And wow, thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Gosh,
Thank you so much.
I have to admit, I do like the simplicities of it. And I do feel like, opening to following that inner guidance, like really having that as the main focus
Yeah.
is the number one thing always.
You've heard, I mean, I know our inner circle hears me say this all the time. You hear me say it on the chat all the time. I think it's no accident that you're on here with this message, because this is something that we really, really come back to, is like, you have your answers. You are your best guru. You know your truth and what feels light for you. Now, if you just are having a little bit of trouble really hearing what those messages are, work with someone, get the guidance. It doesn't have to be Teresa, or it doesn't have to be Courtney, like you said, but find those people that really resonate with you and choose it. Find a way to choose it. Like I said, I sold off some purses online, and I got my first session, and lo and behold, I've been on this journey, and now I'm sitting here doing, this wonderful summit with you all. Just the possibilities are endless. So again, I just want to encourage anyone to just choose yourself if you're feeling on the fence. The other thing I wanted to ask Teresa is, what are some parting words that you have for us today, or from your channel, from your divine guide light, or anything that you'd like to share in closing today?
I know. Otherwise, I would have, if I had more time, I would have brought them in and they don't often just give a one-liner.
I
I
know.
know.
You're right. I know. Mine like to like, they're like, oh, here we got the stage. I know. I love it so much.
Often they're like laughing. And I'm like, oh boy, because they're like so excited to be able to
Yes. Well, no, well,
like
go ahead.
We'll go for it.
We've got about
15
we've got
minutes. if you
15
want.
minutes. Let's do it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's fun. I felt that energy too. They're excited. Yeah. This is cool.
Hello, kind beings of the earth plane. We're, we're very happy to be here with you all, and we've been wanting to chime in with something to add on to what Teresa has shared with you all today. We want to remind you of the importance of play, that many of you don't play enough, that when you play, there's laughter, a whole host of good feelings. There's camaraderie, there's connection, there's communication, real heart to heart, face to face communication with yourselves, with other beings, instead of all of this virtual communication where people are in isolation on their own, communicating trying to find that connection, searching through many different channels and portals and modalities, trying to find that heart-centered connection, trying to find their tribe. You've all formed a tribe here today. This is your tribe. If you have found yourself here, these are people that you are finding a connection with because of the things that you are discussing and talking about. We celebrate you for being here, for being with us, with each other, with the hosts of the show, with Teresa, wanting to know more about this realm of yourselves, this aspect of yourself that's calling you, yearning for this connection. And the connection that it's yearning for is the connection to all that you are, to all that is, to all that exists. The connection to the universe, to consciousness. That is the connection that you're yearning for. And this platform is providing a vehicle for that connection. We honor and respect and have much gratitude for the hosts of this online summit that is providing the opportunity for all of you to connect and be together as a glorious group of individuals who are exploring this side of themselves. It is so beautiful to see, and as you laugh and you chatter, and we laugh and giggle along with you, we are happy to be with you, happy to see that you are interested in discovering more about this aspect of yourself that perhaps you haven't explored much in, or you've dabbled only slightly, is to be curious. Be curious about where it can take you. Be curious and follow those mentors who resonate with you, who you feel could potentially guide you on your paths to realizing more about all that you are and all that there is that is beyond what your consciousness will. One moment, please. Of what you are permitted to know at this time in your journey. That new knowledge, it's like granules of like breadcrumbs that are left on a path. And that if you follow these breadcrumbs along the way, they will lead you closer and closer and closer and closer to the life that you came here to live, and closer to the discovery of the you that's inside of you. And that you are being guided to that next breadcrumb, and to not to ignore it, but to pick it up and look at it and analyze it. And that Bianca was, as she said, that you were, that to not to be afraid of being able to, that you're in, that if the information is here and it's finding you today and it's resonating with you, to not delay in doing this for yourself, because when you invest in yourselves, you are loving yourselves. You are giving yourselves the care and attention that you deserve. That many of you give much care and attention to others through your jobs, in your families, in your friends, often leaving yourselves behind. This is why we are urging you to find these soul connections, these communities, these groups where you can have the opportunity to learn more about yourselves, to be able to, as Teresa said, to peel off the layers so that you can step further into the greatness that you are, to learn more about the miraculousness that each of you are. We are so in awe of each and every one of you. Such beautiful, creative, expansive, glorious beings with so much potential. And yet many of you are playing small or are restricted or feel confined and closed and alone. We invite you to find that connection, and it can be through play in the ways that you find fun for yourselves, whether that's through sports, and it can be through online communities where you have the chance to talk and to share and to laugh and to giggle. It can be through groups that are around a particular hobby, for example, like knitting or drawing or singing or dancing. It's fine. Find those opportunities to connect so that you don't feel so alone. For you are never alone. Although you may feel like that because you feel disconnected, we are always with you, and your divine angels and ancestors and that invisible community that is always with you, surrounding you, loving you, guiding you. They're always there. So please know that you are never alone. But we invite you to get out and to play and to surround yourself with loving individuals like this community offers, and perhaps others that you feel called. Those breadcrumbs, they are leading you to that. Follow those crumbs, pick them up, look at them, make time for them. And then the next crumb will be dropped for you. So it's going to progressively lead you and expose you to more and more information as you progress on this path of self-discovery, so that you too can discover the miraculousness of your nature, of your true nature, of the truth of that which you are in human form, which is also hugely magnetic, magnificent, and miraculous. Three wonderful M's there. Magnetic, magnificent, and miraculous beings. Discover and step into that truth. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to share some of our wisdom with all of you today.
Oh, shit.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Dana put the, oh my gosh, so funny.
M equals 444.
And so my little number necklace is 444. That's my.
No, and they've been saying that to me all the time. It's 444 all the time.
Isn't
Oh,
that cool? Thank you for that, Dana. Look at this. Thank you for that, Teresa.
Oh my
Thank you for
goodness,
your,
gorgeous.
thank you to your amazing guides. Isn't that cool, you guys? Like,
Yeah.
we started off this day, we were laughing and giggling. We're like the giggly squad of like of the woo. And, having these big, deep conversations and this big, like we're tackling some big, big, heavy things sometimes that can seem heavy, but we also want to infuse it with so much joy. And immediately when you went into channeling, it was like, don't forget to play. Don't forget the giggles. We're like, how does she know the giggle? Like, I was like, and I think we said that even off camera before we'd even started. And it was like, her channel knew. And then, of course, the 444 that I am wearing. And then Dana brought up that the
Incredible.
M's equal 444. It's like, you guys, we can't make this stuff up.
No.
It is beautiful. In fact, there's 4 messages that are there on the screen.
Exactly 4.
Yes. And thank you. What a joy. What a beautiful way to end this day. Manisha says 4 is my
4 is my
birthday.
birthday.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. I have to start wearing my 3M hat again. That's too funny. I love it.
My 3M.
That's really cute. And then, just the synchronicities that we get to experience
So
all
fun.
together, and the fact that we are a tribe, a community here creating this together.
It was
Thank
the
you.
full message of everything.
Yes. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on
Yes, please.
even on Instagram or on YouTube. That's how we let the algorithm know we want to keep this community going. That's how we want to let the world know that we appreciate these messages coming through and that we want to see more of it. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank
Gosh,
you.
that's
Thank
so
you
incredible.
for allowing space for them. I always love it because they always share something that, is unexpected, and it's always such a good reminder. And again, it's just like such simple things, right?
It is, but it's so profound.
Play, yeah, connect with each other.
I
know.
know. I love it.
Work and whatnot. So yeah, thank you.
Richard says, since today is 5/26/2025, it makes the master number of 22, which is a 4.
Of course. And that brings us to the winner of our interactive today, the interactive person for the day.
So let's wrap with Teresa here.
Yeah, sorry.
Teresa, thank you so much. Such a gift.
Thank you so much. Thank you.